Picture the person you'd text first if your car broke down at 2 a.m. Not a relative, not your partner, that one friend who would show up half asleep with jumper cables and zero questions. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. A version of that exact person existed 30,000 years ago, living in a freezing cave, and the bond they had with their best friend was so strong we can still dig it up out of the ground today. So did ancient humans have best friends? Yes. And not the casual kind. The ride or die, I will fight a mammoth for you kind. Hold on to that, because the way we proved it involves two children buried in a way that genuinely confused scientists for 50 years. Let's set the scene. For most of human history, you lived in a small band, maybe 30 to 50 people, and you spent your entire life with them. No moving cities, no swiping to meet new people. The faces around the fire when you were born were mostly the faces around the fire when you died. And in that world, your survival did not depend on being strong or fast. It depended on whether other people liked you enough to share food when your hunt failed and back you up when someone bigger wanted your spot. Friendship wasn't a nice bonus. Friendship was the entire life insurance policy. So, how do you keep a friend in a world with no birthday reminders and no group chat? You groom them, literally. Watch any troop of monkeys and you'll see them spend hours picking through each other's fur. For decades, scientists assumed this was about hygiene, getting the bugs out. But an Oxford researcher named Robin Dunbar noticed something off. These animals were grooming way more than any bug problem could explain. So, what was actually going on? They were building friendships. Grooming releases endorphins, the same feel-good chemicals you get from a hug or a workout. It was the original way of saying, I've got you. And before you feel superior about this, ask yourself why you pay a stranger to massage your shoulders or scratch your scalp at the salon. You are grooming. You just added a tip. But here's where it gets strange. Dunbar did the math on grooming and found a problem. As human groups grew bigger, you'd need to physically groom more and more people to keep all those friendships alive. At a group of around 150, you'd have to spend nearly half your waking life just picking through people's hair. Nobody has time for that. There's hunting to do. So if our ancestors couldn't groom everyone by hand, how did they hold their friendships together? The answer is something you are arguably doing right now. They started talking. Specifically, they started gossiping. Dunbar's big idea, laid out in his book in 1996, is that human language didn't evolve to discuss philosophy or plan the hunt. It evolved as a kind of vocal grooming, a way to bond with several friends at once without touching any of them. And what do we actually use this miraculous gift of language for? Studies of normal conversation found that around 2/3 of all human talk is social. Who did what? Who likes who? Who's being a problem? We invented the most powerful communication tool in the known universe, and we mostly use it to talk about other people. You think that's a modern flaw? That is a 50,000-year-old feature. Gossip is just grooming with your mouth. And it gets better, because there's a third bonding trick they used that you did this morning without noticing. Laughter. In another study, Dunbar showed that laughing together literally floods your brain with those same endorphins and makes you feel bonded to the people you're laughing with. This is why your oldest friends are usually the ones you find hilarious, and why a shared inside joke feels like a tiny private fortress. Ancient humans sitting around a fire cackling at someone tripping over a log were doing the exact same chemical maintenance on their friendships that you do when you send your best friend a meme at midnight. You would think laughter is just a happy accident. Every instinct says it's meaningless, but it's actually a precision-engineered bonding tool, which is somehow both adorable and slightly horrifying. Okay, I promised you the part that confused scientists for 50 years, and now we get there. In Russia, at a site called Sunghir, archaeologists found a burial dating back roughly 34,000 years. Two children, laid head-to-head, absolutely covered in treasure. We're talking thousands of carefully carved ivory beads, each one taking maybe an hour to make. Spears made from straightened mammoth tusks, which should be physically impossible. The amount of labor in that grave represents thousands of hours of human work. This was, by Ice Age standards, a royal send-off. And for years, everyone assumed these two kids must have been related. Family. Brothers, maybe. Then they sequenced the DNA, and the children were not close relatives at all. So here are two unrelated kids buried together, facing each other, given a fortune in handmade goods to carry into whatever came next. Nobody can prove exactly what their bond was, but it tells us something undeniable. 34,000 years ago, a group of humans decided that a connection between two people who did not share blood was worth more effort than almost anything else they owned. That is not survival. That is love. That is somebody saying these two belong together forever, no matter what the family tree says. And here's a detail that snaps the whole picture into focus. Those ivory beads, the special stone, the materials in graves like this, often came from hundreds of miles away. Ancient humans were trading goods across enormous distances, which means they had friends in other bands, people they'd never see for months, but trusted enough to swap precious things with. They were maintaining long-distance friendships across an entire continent, with no phones, no roads, and no addresses. You complain about keeping up with a friend who moved 2 states over. Your ancestor was basically pen pals with someone 300 miles away, and the only delivery service was walking. And that is the thing that should stop you cold, because we are taught that ancient life was brutal, every person for themselves. Claw your way to tomorrow. But the evidence keeps showing the opposite. Friendship, the real chosen kind, was so central to being human that they poured their scarce resources into honoring it. Researchers who study this even found that friendship shows up across the animal kingdom. In elephants, dolphins, baboons, long-term bonds between individuals who aren't even related, kept alive purely by memory and care. Choosing your people is one of the oldest things a brain can do. Which brings us back to that friend you'd call at 2 a.m. Dunbar found that no matter how big the world gets, no matter how many thousands of followers you collect, the number of genuinely close friends a human can hold sits at around 5. The same for a hunter-gatherer, the same for you, the same for everyone on every continent. Your phone can hold 10,000 contacts, and your heart still tops out at about 5. We did not upgrade. We just got better notifications. This video discusses anthropological and archaeological research for educational purposes. Modern hunter-gatherer observations are used as comparative models to understand ancient human behavior, not as definitive proof of how all ancient humans lived across different time periods and geographies. So, did ancient humans have best friends? They groomed each other to say I love you. They invented language mostly to gossip. They laughed around fires to stay bonded. And when one of their own died, they sometimes spent thousands of hours making sure that person was not buried alone. That friend you'd text at 2 a.m. with the jumper cables? You're not doing something modern. You're running software that's at least 34,000 years old, on hardware that has barely changed. The cave is gone. The fire is gone. But the friend is exactly the same. And honestly, knowing that, maybe text them today. The mammoth can wait.